dear viewers, and welcome to World News Program with me, Maryam Zian. To the headlines. Dozens of civilians, mostly children and women, killed in Zionist massacres across the Gaza Strip. The UN expresses shock over the targeting of its staff in the Strip, and Hamas urges mediators to assume their responsibilities in stopping the aggression. And in an expanded meeting to assess bilateral cooperation and joint security coordination, Algeria and Tunisia reaffirmed their shared commitment to combating negative phenomena in border areas and accelerating development efforts. Also coming up, following their phone call, the Kremlin stated that there is a strong understanding between Putin and Trump, while Trump affirmed having very good discussions with Zelensky. Meanwhile, the EU stressed its refusal to halt arms supplies to Kiev. Hello and welcome back to the details of your program. First in our news file, 25 Palestinians were killed and others were injured in a Zionist airstrike targeting a house in the Al Sabra neighborhood of Gaza City, according to local media reports. The same sources added that Zionist warplanes carried out a series of airstrikes across the Strip, including the one that targeted the house. Local media in Gaza reported that 14 Palestinians were killed and 30 others were injured in a Zionist airstrike on a mourning house in Beit Lahya, northern Gaza. The same sources added that the Zionist strike targeted the mourning house located in the As-Salatin neighborhood of Beit Lahya. Local sources also in Gaza reported that 6 Palestinians were killed and several others were injured after a Zionist airstrike targeted a civilian vehicle in the Musbah area north of Rafah in southern Gaza. The same sources added that Zionist warplanes continue to carry out intense airstrikes on various areas in the Gaza Strip, in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, particularly in Rafah and Khan Yunis. Four Palestinians were killed and others were injured on Wednesday due to a Zionist airstrike on El Zaytoun neighborhood southeast of Gaza City. According to local Palestinian sources, Zionist warplanes targeted a house belonging to the Abu al-Daf family in the Al Zaytoun, resulting in the deaths of 4 Palestinians and the injury of others. This comes amid intense aerial and ground bombardment across various areas of the Strip. And the Zionist occupation continues its attacks on the Palestinian people. Despite the ceasefire in Gaza, it launched a new offensive, killing over 500 and deepening the humanitarian crisis for more than 2 million Palestinians. Hussein Berkan has a report.
Life is getting harder. There is no truce or ceasefire. I'm living in the eastern region in Deir al-Balah. The snipers are stationed daily in front of the citizens. Continuous strikes. There is nothing of what was agreed upon. None of what was agreed upon for the ceasefire was implemented by them.
Where's the Arab world? I want to know. Where's the Arab world? Where's the Islamic world? During the Holy Ramadan, this happens to the Palestinians, to our children, while we are asleep. I have 2 girls. The wall came down on them. They had blankets, and God has saved them. They would have gone. This is a crime of extermination, a genocide against the Palestinian people.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل في ناس بتفحم جوا حتى وين التحويل هنا مزنوق هذا مزنوق بسم الله الله اكبر بسم الله الله اكبر.
The United Nations expressed its shock at the Israeli occupation's targeting of its team by shelling a UN building in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza Strip. The executive director of the United Nations Office for Project Services, George Moreira da Silva, said at a press conference in Brussels that an explosive munition was fired at infrastructure and exploded inside a UN guest house. He confirmed that the target location is known and is located in an isolated area with no buildings, indicating that the targeting was direct and deliberate.
It should be stressed that it was not through any action removing an exploded ordnance at the location. So this is not related, this explosion is not related with any activity related with mine action. In my opinion, this was not an accident. It cannot be categorized as an accident. It is at least an incident. What is happening in Gaza is unconscionable. I'm shocked and devastated by this tragic news.
Hamas has condemned the brutal crimes committed by the Israeli occupation forces, including indiscriminate bombings, targeting of unarmed civilians, and the ongoing siege and starvation. The movement described these actions as war crimes and acts of genocide that necessitate urgent international intervention to uphold humanity's dignity. In a statement on Wednesday, Hamas called on mediators to take responsibility for halting the aggression and held the U.S. administration directly accountable for the innocent blood being shed in Gaza.
We call on the guarantor mediator to take responsibility in curbing this brutal aggression. We also appeal to our Arab and Islamic nations, both governments and peoples, to take urgent action at all levels to support our people in Gaza and to activate all means of pressure and backing necessary to stop the aggression and lift the unjust siege on our people.
The United Nations Office for Coordination and Humanitarian Affairs announced that more than 170 children were killed during the Zionist assault on Gaza early Tuesday. In a statement on its official website on Wednesday, OCHA reported that the total number of casualties from the airstrikes exceeded 400, including more than 170 children and 80 women. The statement also noted that rescue teams and paramedics were unable to reach many victims due to a lack of equipment, fuel, and heavy machinery. The UNICEF has expressed deep concern for the children of Gaza following Zionist airstrikes on the Strip. In a statement, UNICEF said it is gravely concerned for more than 1 million children in Gaza after the Israeli airstrikes, describing them as the most intense since the beginning of the truce in Gaza. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, stated that the UN has failed to prevent genocide in Gaza. In a post on X, Albanese said that what is happening in Gaza aims at the ethnic cleansing of what remains of Palestine, emphasizing that the struggle for the rights of the people of Gaza is a moral imperative. The government media office in Gaza announced on Wednesday that the region has entered the first stage of famine, with nearly 2 million people losing food security due to the ongoing Zionist aggression. Ismail Tawbata, the office's Director General, warned of an unprecedented humanitarian disaster as all crossings remain closed. He held the Zionist occupation and the U.S. administration directly responsible for the ongoing genocide, calling for urgent international accountability.
The Gaza Strip has officially entered the first stage of famine as nearly 2 million people have completely lost their food security due to the ongoing Zionist aggression, the cessation of charity food distributions, the interruption of humanitarian aid, and the lack of essential foodstuffs in markets as a result of the closure of crossings. We hold the occupation and the U.S. administration directly responsible for the continuation of this genocide, and these crimes demand urgent international accountability for all those responsible. We emphasize the urgent need for humanitarian aid to be allowed into Gaza to avoid a real humanitarian catastrophe that threatens the lives of millions.
And thousands of U.S. activists protested outside the White House on Wednesday against the renewed Zionist genocide in Gaza. Demonstrators waved Palestinian flags and held banners condemning the bombing, urging the U.S. administration to take urgent action to stop the genocide and restrain the far-right movement. Large marches also took place in New York, Chicago, Wisconsin, San Francisco, Seattle, and Boston in solidarity with the Palestinian people.
This is absolutely unacceptable. It is Israel and the United States that have green-lit a return to genocidal airstrikes after more than 2 weeks of a full, total siege. No water, no desalination plants, no electricity, no medicine. This is an attempt to destroy an entire population. You can see the anger and the outrage in the crowd.
Hamas called on the Palestinian people in the occupied West Bank and Al-Quds on Wednesday to escalate general mobilization and continue the uprising against the occupation and its settlers in support of Gaza and in response to the ongoing aggression on West Bank refugee camps. In a statement, Hamas affirmed that the Zionist occupation forces continue committing crimes against civilians in the West Bank amid the horrific massacres targeting Gaza's residents and the ongoing genocide against innocent civilians.
We call on our people in the West Bank, Al-Quds, and the occupied territories to escalate mobilization and intensify the uprising against the occupation and its settlers in support of Gaza and in response to the continued aggression on West Bank refugee camps. We urge our revolutionary youth to persist in resistance by all available means, reaffirming the message of strength and steadfastness. Our people will not bow to the crimes of the occupation. Rather, these crimes will only strengthen our resolve and fuel the fire that will consume the criminal occupier.
Algerian Interior Minister Ibrahim Merad stressed the importance of strengthening bilateral cooperation to address security and economic threats facing Algeria and Tunisia. In a meeting with his Tunisian counterpart Khalid Nouri, attended by security officials, he emphasized the need for coordinated efforts to combat crime, terrorism, and smuggling. Merad also highlighted the role of existing joint committees in border development and suggested the formation of specialized anti-smuggling units.
كان لقاء كاد أقول طبيعي بين
It was a meeting that I could almost describe as natural between one people in two countries, because this is the saying of our leaders. We must work together and organize ourselves to avoid the negative aspects we're experiencing, which could affect both our peoples and our economies. Crime in general, whether terrorism or smuggling, is being addressed by existing committees, and we may establish additional committees dedicated solely to combating and eliminating these threats. This is about the fate of our two countries and our citizens. We must protect them and ensure they have stable and continuous livelihoods in an environment of security, safety, and mutual cooperation.
And for his part, the Tunisian Interior Minister Khalid Nouri addressed the issue of smuggling during the Algerian-Tunisian meeting, highlighting its direct impact on both countries' economies and the need to intensify cooperation efforts to combat it.
We discussed the issue of smuggling, its impact on the economies of countries, and ways to combat this dangerous phenomenon, as well as the importance of cooperation and timely information exchange. We also addressed the issue of irregular migration and its effects on both countries. Additionally, we talked about further efforts to support the idea of developing border areas. We also discussed the issue of drug trafficking.
A statement from the Algerian Ministry of Defense reported that a military fighter jet crashed on Wednesday morning during a scheduled training mission near Awlef in Adrar province, resulting in the martyrdom of pilot Lieutenant Colonel Bakoush Nasser. In light of this tragedy, Army Chief of Staff General Saeed Shingriha extended his deepest condolences to the martyr's family and ordered an investigation into the accident's causes and circumstances. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, extended his condolences over the martyrdom of Lieutenant Colonel Bakoush Nasser, who lost his life in the crash of a military fighter jet during a scheduled training mission on Wednesday morning near the town or the province of Awlef in Adrar province. Within the third military region, President Tebboune prayed for the Almighty to grant him forgiveness and mercy in these blessed days of the holy month of Ramadan, welcome him into paradise, and grant his loved ones patience and solace. And Algeria celebrated on Wednesday National Victory Day, observed on March 19 each year. The event constitutes a historic milestone that crowned the struggle of millions of Algerians who sacrificed their lives to recover sovereignty and independence. The anniversary also serves as a testament to the new Algeria, which continues to advance steadily towards more progress across various sectors. Marwa Al-Iwar has more.
Algeria commemorates Victory Day as a crucial moment in its history, celebrating the role of its strong diplomacy in securing independence and reinforcing the legacy of its liberation struggle. The event serves as a reminder of the resilience that fueled 130 years of resistance against the French colonial rule, an unyielding fight that ultimately led to Algeria's full sovereignty. Marking the culmination of this struggle, the signing of the Evian Accords underscored Algeria's diplomatic tenacity. Negotiators stood firm against colonial maneuvers, leveraging the armed resistance in the mountains to force France into accepting the terms of the November 1st declaration. The agreement paved the way for complete national sovereignty, ensuring that not a single inch of Algerian territory was neither compromised nor relinquished. Today, Algeria remains committed to the same principles, channeling its efforts towards national development and economic growth. With a strategy focused on maximizing domestic resources and ensuring sustainable development, the country continues to work towards securing a better future for all Algerians. Meanwhile, the authorities remain vigilant amid evolving regional challenges, maintaining a proactive approach to geopolitical complexities. On the international stage, Algeria asserts itself with a firm diplomatic stance, pushing back against external pressures, particularly from the far right, which seeks to impose policies that defy established diplomatic standards. The country also continues to play a key role in advocating for Africa's interests, using its non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council to call for justice and equality on the global stage. Algeria's foreign policy remains centered on championing just causes, with the Palestinian and Western Sahara causes at the core of its diplomatic efforts. Inspired by the legacy of Victory Day, the country reaffirms its unwavering commitment to defending sovereignty both at home and abroad.
And the Dean of Algiers Grand Mosque, Sheikh Mohammed Mamoun Al-Qasimi Al-Hassani, affirmed on Wednesday that the Algerian people have written heroic chapters in their history despite French colonial attempts to erase their faith and identity. Speaking at a scientific symposium titled Pages from Muslim Heroism on the occasion of Victory Day, Sheikh Al-Qasimi stated that Algeria's triumph was real and that colonialism's impact will remain in history.
في ذكرى الفتح هذا العام.
On this anniversary of liberation, we celebrate Victory Day, and what greater image than the day Algeria triumphed when colonialism fell, leaving no trace. God willing, it will leave no trace except in the pages of history. It is the day when Algeria's flag was raised high after a century and a third of occupation, as our people wrote the most heroic epics of resistance. On this anniversary of liberation, we celebrate Victory Day.
The Dean of Algiers Grand Mosque also noted that commemorating Victory Day reflects the resilience of those standing firm in Gaza and the steadfastness of the resistance in Jenin.
ها نحن اليوم أيها الحضور الكريم.
Here we are today, dear audience, as we commemorate Victory Day in Algeria, seeing its reflection in the faces of the steadfast in Gaza, the resilience of the resistance in Jenin, and the chants of the defenders of Al-Aqsa Mosque. They walk a path we once took before, knowing its inevitable outcome, an honorable and triumphant victory, and ease comes from Allah, for His is indeed mighty and powerful.
And Algeria strongly condemned the terrorist attack that targeted the convoy of the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia in the capital, Mogadishu. In a statement, the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed Algeria's relief over the safety of President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud and his survival from this heinous attempt. The statement added that given Algeria's painful experience with terrorism and its deep understanding of its destructive aims, motives, the country reaffirms its full solidarity and unwavering support for Somalia and its efforts to eradicate discord and enhance security and stability in the country. And in other news, the Kremlin accused Ukraine of attempting to undermine Russian and American efforts to reach a settlement in the war, noting that Kiev targeted a Russian energy facility after a truce agreement was reached between Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov indicated that these attacks harmed joint Russian-American efforts, confirming that Putin and Trump agreed not to target energy infrastructure facilities for 30 days.
Unfortunately, we see that so far there has been no reciprocity from the Kyiv regime. There have been attempts to strike at our energy infrastructure facilities. You know about this, and information on this is also available. That is why we are closely monitoring whether the Kyiv regime listens to the firm intention of the presidents of Russia and the United States to do everything possible step by step to move towards a peaceful settlement.
U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that he did not discuss aid to support Kiev during his phone call with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. President Trump, in an interview with Fox News, confirmed that his discussions with his Russian counterpart were constructive and lasted for about 2 hours, emphasizing that achieving a ceasefire in Ukraine without additional efforts would be difficult.
Well, you have a situation where you have a lot of guns pointing at each other foolishly, because it would have never happened if I were president. That was not a war that was supposed to happen, and it did happen. So that's where we are. And right now, you have a lot of guns pointing at each other, and a ceasefire without going a little bit further would have been tough. Russia has the advantage, as you know. They have encircled about 2,500 soldiers. They're nicely encircled, and that's not good. We didn't talk about aid, actually. We didn't talk about aid at all. We talked about a lot of things, but aid was never discussed.
US President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that he discussed Russian and Ukrainian requests and needs for reaching a peace agreement during a 1-hour phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In a post on Truth Social, Trump stated that a significant portion of the discussion focused on his call the previous day with Russian President Vladimir Putin and aimed at coordinating between Russia and Ukraine regarding their respective requests and needs. He added that the path to a settlement is moving in the right direction. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the U.S. to assume responsibility for monitoring a potential ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, with a focus on energy facilities.
I believe that the primary subject to this control should be the United States. If we have such an agreement, there will be a list of sites, a list of facilities, energy sites, and infrastructure. We will certainly prepare this list and present it to our partners. If the Russians do not strike our facilities, we will not strike theirs. For us, the red line is the recognition of the occupied Ukrainian territories.
The European Union said on Wednesday that Moscow cannot be trusted after it agreed to temporarily halt its attacks on Ukrainian energy facilities. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas told reporters that Moscow's demand to halt arming Kiev cannot be accepted, noting that the two accounts of the phone call between Trump and Putin confirm that the Russian president is unwilling to make any concessions.
Well, those conditions that they have presented, it shows that they don't really want peace, actually, because they are presenting as conditions all their ultimate goals that they want to achieve from the war. There's a broad political support for that initiative, which is good, but there's a lot of details that need to be worked out, because there are also defense ministers that need to have a say, and we have a meeting of defense ministers, but it's important that the Council said that we need to move swiftly, and that is what we are doing.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said that all Ukrainian military personnel, especially foreign mercenaries in the Kursk Oblast, are terrorists, and their crimes must be thoroughly investigated. Putin added that during the expanded meeting of the Russian Prosecutor General's office, that his country's forces have recently carried out a series of military operations to complete the defeat of Ukrainian forces in the Kursk Oblast, where the Ukrainian army had advanced 7 months ago.
You know, when we all know that our forces have recently carried out a number of swift, bold, and effective operations, they are now completing the defeat of enemy forces in the Kursk Oblast. I reiterate that according to our law, all Ukrainian military personnel, especially foreign mercenaries, who are in our territory and committed a number of crimes against civilians, are classified under our law as terrorists. Their crimes must be exposed, recorded, and thoroughly investigated.
The Houthi group Ansarullah announced an attack on the American aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman and several other U.S. warships in the Red Sea early Wednesday, responding to U.S. airstrikes against them. Houthi spokesperson Yahya Sariyah stated that the group launched cruise missiles and explosive-laden drones at the carrier after monitoring U.S. military movements in the Red Sea, preparing for a large-scale assault on Yemen.
The Yemeni armed forces successfully carried out an operation targeting the Nevatim air base with a Palestine II hypersonic ballistic missile. By the will of Allah, this operation achieved its objective successfully. The Yemeni armed forces will expand the scope of targets in occupied Palestine in the coming hours and days, unless the aggression against Gaza comes to an end.
In response, the United States struck targets in the Yemeni capital Sana'a on Wednesday, the latest in a wave of strikes carried out in retaliation for attacks by the Houthi group on ships in the Red Sea. Eyewitnesses reported that the strikes had hit the Al-Jarraf district of Sana'a close to the city's airport. The strikes also hit an under-construction occasions hall in a residential neighborhood in Al-Thawra Directorate in Sana'a, injuring 9 people, mostly women and children.
American, Zionist, and British strikes, the triad of evil. We will not submit, we will not tire, and we will not give up. We are with Gaza no matter what the Americans do, no matter what the Israelis do. We will not submit, and we will not yield.
And in an interview with Fox News, U.S. President Donald Trump said Beijing needs Washington economically. This comes as Donald Trump spoke directly with Vladimir Putin since coming into office. He is still yet to hold talks with the Chinese president despite the U.S. twice hiking tariffs on the world's second strongest economy.
China needs us in terms of trade very badly, but we have to straighten out the deficit. We have now more than $1 trillion deficit with China. It's not even believable. And we're going to be doing something about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings our coverage to a close for tonight. Thank you for watching and have a great night.